Hey everybody, this is my 40-gallon waterfall tank, and tonight I'm going to get started on a little bit of work to it. So we're going to have a little chat about it, give it a look over. The work I'm going to do is nothing that I'm going to wind up getting on video. It's not really going to be that big of a deal. The main thing I'm going to do tonight is get started on a Chemiclean treatment, and that will involve nothing more complicated than throwing an air stone in the tank, which I already have an air stone and an air pump in the other room that I have dedicated for that purpose. Whenever I need to do this, I just grab that air stone with the air pump, throw it in the tank, plug it in, and then this being a 40-gallon tank, it's just one scoop for every 10 gallons. So, 4 little scoops, swish it around in a cup of water, and then pour it in the tank. And that's pretty much all I have to do. After a few days, if I want, I can do a water change. I find that that's not necessary. If I want, I can just do another dose and keep the treatment going if it hasn't fully done its job. It's really, really inexpensive, really, really easy to use, and so I don't really think of that as much of a hassle at all. So I'm not going to worry about getting all that on video. Again, you don't really need to see me swirling a little cup of powder around until it's dissolved. It takes about 2 seconds, and then I pour it in the tank. But I do want to take note on how clear the water is. The fact that the waterfall is up and running again, I think, makes a big difference. And I've done a couple really big water changes over the last 3 or 4 days, and that's gotten a lot of the tannins out of the tank. But I swear, with the water running and flowing the way it is, it's just so much cleaner and clearer. I've got less algae growth again. And while the cyanobacteria is still in there, it really, really took off when the water flow was greatly reduced. I put sort of an emergency filter on the side there, and while I've got it turned way back right now, you can see it's barely trickling in. That's partially because I need to replace the filter pad, and partially because I've got it turned down to the slowest possible flow rate. It's almost shut off, mainly because I just don't really need it. It's just kind of there for, it's there, so why not have it kind of running, a little bit of extra filtration is not going to hurt anybody. That is my main source of filtration and aeration, gas exchange. The nitrates and nutrients get reduced out of the tank through all of the vegetation I've got going on. And that brings me to a more permanent fix. When I built this thing, I always had trouble getting this basin up here sealed. I don't know why, but it was always difficult. I kept, I was laying layers of stuff in and then coating it with silicone, and it was breaking loose and peeling up, and I just don't know what it was about that basin, but I always had issues. And then once the waterfall was up and running, I had big rocks in there, and I had been, jamming pieces of wood, and, roots of plants were growing in there. And so it's no wonder I always had leaks, and it always came from up there. I was always kind of suspicious of that. And now that we've got it sealed off with that plastic bag, and we're still just dry as a bone in the back, not even a hint of moisture. And so that, I'm 100% positive at this point that my leak is right in there. And so what I'm going to do is shut the waterfall down. You can see how the water sprite up there is already taking a liking to its new home. It's growing towards the light. It's greening up. And so before that stuff starts getting established in my very temporary fix, I want to pull that out of there. And all I'm really going to do probably is goop it all up with silicone, put that bag back in it or something similar. I'll probably go out and buy like a 4mm piece of clear tarp or something like that. And I'll glue it in and seal it in this way so the whole area is sealed with one piece of plastic. And then once that's cured into place, I can make another batch of this green or brown, silicone dye, and I can paint over it with that, and that'll disguise it a little bit, and then we can put it back together and let the plants go crazy. And once that water sprite really gets to, growing in and getting bushy and everything up top, you won't even be able to tell I ever did anything to it, and we'll have my waterfall back. But unlike before, where the water was mostly flowing over here, and this did very little at all. Most people probably didn't even know it was designed to actually flow in here, and then I've got a sluice cut in back here where it's supposed to run down through there. And it just never did that because it got kind of clogged up at this end, and then over time with the water going over here, it kind of sagged it down, and now this is actually the low point, not this. I've got a rock under there kind of propping the plastic up to keep it flowing that way and out the end. So I'll probably have to do a little bit of work in there, get that more permanently established as a high spot. I've also considered making a modification to what I'm doing right over here. If you've noticed that couple pieces of string hanging down, I'm doing that simply for the wick effect. Before I did this, I was getting very little dripping here, because that's important. Most of that drip goes to this side, and it's keeping my Java moss right in there nice and wet. So that dripping had stopped, and this dripping was not happening, because if you'll see, what I did was I tied those pieces of string to a ceramic ring for biomedia, just to give it something to some weight to hold it in place. And by putting those couple ceramic rings in there, it reduced the water flow just enough that I got some backing up, and now I'm getting some dripping coming off here naturally. But I also have the wick effect, that capillary action is giving me the dripping right on the inside of where I want it to be dripping, and it's keeping this side moist enough for me. So I can do that, leave that the way it is. After a while you won't even see it. I can also maybe tuck a little plant in there, like a hanging plant, and that in itself will cause a little bit of overflow. We can do something with that. Now that I know we're not getting any leaking going on down here, we can definitely work with that. And because I did enjoy having some water flowing and everything across the front of that, what I can do is take some airline tubing, the real small 3/8 inch diameter, and I can just position some of it up there and up and over and have a couple hanging down. And if I want them to be on, I can just get a siphon started and they'll drip and allow a little bit of water. I can even put a little clamp that I could screw closed and reduce it all the way down to like a dripping or a steady stream. And then if I don't want the water to flow in the front anymore, if it's splashing or annoying me or I got to get in there and clean, I can just turn the water off that's flowing down the front. So I've actually got the option of creating myself sort of that natural rainfall effect. I do like this, again, the sort of dripping effect that you get off the front of it. We got a little bit of it happening right here by accident, where you get this sort of broken stream of water. Seldom in nature do you just get that straight stream coming down here, a straight stream coming down there, and then just a straight flow right off the other end. It's always splashing and running and going around extra little corners and dribbling off rocks and sticks, and it just gives it that much more natural appeal. So let me turn this light on here, and we'll have a final look down in the tank. And you can see all that green sheeting across the back glass, and you can see it on the glass on the right hand side. That's the cyanobacteria, and some of that real thick green sheeting you can see on the wood is cyanobacteria. Plenty of that is just green algal growth, and not all of that green is going to come out of the tank, which is good. I don't like a tank that doesn't have any kind of natural look to it. But the cyanobacteria is something altogether different, and when that gets out of control, I need to get in there and do something about it. Now, the other day, it was out of control. I really should have got it on video, but I was just kind of in here doing my thing, and I didn't think about it. But the cyanobacteria was just like mad, crazy cyanobacteria in sheets that were so thick that I actually thought they were rocks in the back. I didn't remember having so many rocks in the tank, and I thought the rocks were covered with cyanobacteria. And what happened was, as I started sucking it up in the gravel vac, they were bubbles. All the mulm and everything that was underneath of them decaying was creating gases that were creating bubbles of cyanobacteria, and when I'd put the siphon down to them, like the bubble would pop and all the mulm and everything would come out of it, and it was nasty. I mean, it was so much filth and gross and crud in this tank, simply because I'd had that waterfall shut down for several days. Well, I guess at that point it had been several weeks. But I spent a long time with that gravel vac in here, filled the tank up and then redid it again. So again, that water change I did a few days ago, when I say it was a massive water change, it really was. I did like a sort of a double 70%er. I filled it back up and did it again because there was so much cyanobacteria and mulm and crud and everything in there. So that was my main physical cleaning. Then the other day I just did another water change to clear the tank up again, and then tonight we're going to go ahead and start the actual cyanobacteria treatment, and hopefully the treatment will kill off the rest of the stuff that's in there so we won't have so much of that bright green stuff. And in reality, if I didn't want to worry about it, I could just get in there and gravel vac again. I could wipe that back glass down, wipe this glass down, and just physically remove enough of it that it wouldn't even be an eyesore or noticeable. But as I mentioned in a video the other day, I like to use that Chemiclean just because it's easy. It gives me something to talk about shooting videos, and it gives me a little bit of, you know, something that I can explain to people, maybe if they don't really understand how to treat for cyanobacteria, what it is, how it works, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be talking about that probably over the next few days again as I treat my waterfall tank here. So thanks for watching this one. As I said, we're not really going to show any of the stuff I'm doing because that's literally just going to be a matter of throwing an air stone and a cup of water in the tank, and that'll be the treatment for the night. We're not going to do anything else, but I have been standing here thinking about it, and that is sort of an overview of what's going to be going on in here. The main thing is going to be shutting it down for a little while, drying this area out and working on getting that sealed up, and then we can go from there. So make sure you're subscribed, and that way you won't miss that or anything else I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. Don't forget, this one here is my waterfall tank. So thanks for watching. I'll see you real soon in the next one.